After working hard at the gym, you need a mattress that works as hard as you do. Spinaline has engineered the perfect mattress for you and your active lifestyle. Don't compromise your recovery with inferior sleep. Order your Spinaline mattress today.
I'm Dave Palumbo, founder of Species Nutrition. I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work and are backed by science. From my earliest bodybuilding days, I believed in only putting the best in my body, and that lives on in the Species Nutrition line of products. We use only top-of-the-line formulations dosed for maximum results and the best flavoring systems available. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Hello, I'm Greg Doucette, owner of Metroflex Gym, the original home of hardcore training. This pandemic has nearly crippled the fitness industry we all so dearly love. With Metroflex gyms now opening up all across the country, it's our turn to hit back. If your health was ever a priority, now's the time. Now's the time to stop feeding your fear and your anxieties and feed your desire to get back on the saddle. For desire is the starting point of all achievement. For those who feel uncertain for what the future will hold, I'm here to assure you Metroflex Gym will continue to provide a platform for bodybuilding and strength conditioning athletes all across the nation. This optimism extends to potential owners looking to venture into owning and operating a Metroflex Gym. With interest rates at an all-time low, you can open up your own Metroflex Gym for the price of a new car. Our Metroflex Gyms are back in business. We're now waiting for you to do the same. Stay hardcore, y'all. God bless.
RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions on diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, competitions, life, whatever's going on in the world right now, it is all on the table as we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, an absolute stacked lineup right now of programming that's either on RxMuscle.com right now or going to be going up tomorrow and over the course of the next few days. Did an all-star panel for Iron Debate, having a very important discussion on race. And then the much-awaited Guru Talk episode with Lane Norton, you just finished wrapping up a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the talk on race relations with Tricky Jackson, Nicole Duncan, John Romano, and Greg Valentino. I thought it was really, really important to do. Not necessarily maybe, bodybuilding related, although there was definitely bodybuilding application to it. But I think that, a lot of our industry is at odds and they're not in agreement. And I thought that it was important to get a balanced panel of people who had, varying opinions, but I think we're all on the same page. The great thing about the bodybuilding industry is that it's really very fairly judged in the sense that there's really no racial discrimination. Maybe in the past there might have been back in Arnold's day, but certainly not today. However, different, races of people have different experiences in life. And I think it was important to get different viewpoints out there And I felt good when the panel discussion was done, and I think that everyone who participated felt really good about it, and I think the audience is going to really enjoy it. And so I think that our community needed to hear that. Obviously, with regard to the Lane Norton Guru Talk I did, everyone's been asking me about that for weeks, and Lane's got a busy schedule, I got a busy schedule, and so finally we connected, and I think people are going to enjoy that too, because it's a lot of great information. Not only was there a little debate and back and forth between him and I, but we're friends, so we get along, so it was a lot of good information disseminated out there, and I think that once again, that's what Guru Talk is about. It's about getting a lot of good information out there. We don't always have to agree with everything that's being said, and it's nice when you have differing opinions, but at the end of the day, there was a lot more similarity between what we were telling people in terms of how to get the best out of your body than there was a discrepancy.
So all those episodes are either live right now, as this is live right now, or going to be live over in the course of the next couple of days. And of course, Iron Rage with Lee Priest, that too going up tomorrow on RxMuscle.com and the RxMuscle YouTube channel. If you haven't already subscribed, hit the subscribe button below. We'll say it in advance. If you like all this information, hit the like button, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our segments coming up. Let's get to the questions. The first two questions, of course, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. The first question, Dave, years back, I used HGH dosages, not uncommon for tests to be 2G and trend to be well over 600 mg per week. I've been on TRT the last few years. Can I make progress at lower doses, or are my receptors burnt out?
Receptors don't burn out. I mean, what happens is that there's a threshold amount of gear that you use that will actually elicit a good response. And I have found that the sweet spot is usually in that 1,000 milligram per week range, especially for testosterone. He was never really taking that much to begin with. He was taking, 600 milligrams. So I'm sure he was getting results. 200 milligrams would yield results too, but less results. So it's a dose-related thing up until, I believe, about the 1,000 milligram mark, and then you get slightly more, but you get more side effects as well. So if you go down to 200 milligrams, you'll make gains, you're just not going to make them as well. In other words, just the fact that you used 600 before and now you're using 200 doesn't mean you're going to make less gains because you used the 600. It's just a lower dose. That's all. You'll still grow. By the time, you've been doing this for a while now, so your receptors have restored themselves. You're just used to maybe the gains you were making on 600 milligrams. So when you take 200, you're not going to make the same gains. You'll make some gains, just not the same gains. You're going to certainly make more gains than if you were on nothing. So that's how that goes.
Second question, again from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. They just mentioned cables here, so I'm not talking about it. They're talking about like cable crossovers in the gym or bands. But the question is, can you grow big arms using cables?
I did. I actually grew bigger arms using cables than I did when I was using free weight, barbells and dumbbells. I find that the ability to really concentrate the tension on the muscle is important. I found the continuous tension on the negative that you get with the cable is beneficial, and I found that if you could push heavy weights once you build up to it, because what happens is when you're using cables, you really can't cheat unless you're using your forearms and you're twisting your wrist. But if you keep that wrist back and you do those cable curls, and Vince Taylor shows that if you do those, okay, you're really isolating the muscle. And if you can build up the heavy weight, which is what I was using back in the day with the cables, and using unilateral isolated movements for overheads and for bicep curls and hammer curls, my arms grew way better. Now, I'm not saying that's gonna be for everyone. Guys with short arms tend to do better with dumbbells and barbells. They seem to be able to feel it better. Whenever I use those, I always felt it in my shoulders. I didn't really feel it in my arms, the muscles in my arms. But the cables provided an isolation. And the funny thing was, I discovered this by accident, really, because I was coming off an arthroscopic surgery on one of my shoulders back in the 90s, and I was just trying to come back slowly and not do anything crazy, and I was just doing, cable stuff that was pretty light, but just squeezing. And I'm like, you know what? I'm getting a better arm working now than I was getting with doing the heavy weights. And then as I built up strength and the weights went up, I started growing muscle better. And that's when I spoke to Vince Taylor about it. And he's like, yeah, that's how I've been doing it for years. And so I think you could build a really good set of arms doing that.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Our handle, if you're not already following us, official_RxMuscle. Dave, we're first going to go to someone named Lee Priest. I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but he wants to know, is Lee the funniest guy you know?
Lee Priest, the funniest guy I know? He's certainly one of them. I don't know if he's the funniest guy I know. I know some pretty funny guys, but no, Lee cracks me up every week. I love doing the show with him just because I laugh. You know, it's kind of like a therapeutic session for me because the way his brain works is so funny because he points out the absurdity in everything he sees, and he's very observant. You know, I could walk through a room and not even notice one person. He notices every nuance of everything that's going on, and that's what makes him so funny. People are able to see the absurdities in life and point them out, and he's certainly not afraid to give his opinion on things. So yeah, it's a fun show, and you know, if you look at the stats on Iron Rage, it's probably one of our most popular shows. So obviously, other people, whether you love him or hate him, they want to hear what he has to say. You know.
Let's go to Ben Lifts. Dave, I'm approaching my mid-30s. I used PEDs in my early 20s, finished with a proper PCT. The last 10 years, I was training natural. I'm healthy and still feeling strong. My question is, if I start to use PEDs again in my 30s or late 30s, should I be afraid and prepared that my next hormone levels won't bounce back after using gear again, even with PCT, and I'll have to be on TRT for the rest of my life?
You know what? I would have bet my bank account on the fact that I was going to be on HRT for the rest of my life because I used steroids for 13 years. I used HRT for 10 years, and I said, there's no way my body will ever produce normal amounts again. And so when I stopped using to get my wife pregnant, the 3 times she got pregnant, my levels came back and they stayed on. And so I feel good. I haven't taken a shot in like over 5 years. So for me, I turn back on, but for other people, they don't turn back on. And I don't, you know, if you turn back on once, you probably will turn back on again, but then again, who knows? We don't really know why the body would, look, testosterone works on a simple feedback, okay? If estrogen is occupying the receptor sites in the hypothalamus of the brain, it stops the signal from being, you know, the hypothalamus from sending gonadotropic releasing hormone to the pituitary, which then stops the pituitary from releasing luteinizing hormone, which, you know, goes to the testicles to turn the testicles on. So if you're cutting down those signals or cutting off those signals, nothing happens. But if you remove the excess estrogen, okay, because it's being produced from the aromatization of steroids, and now you have no excess of testosterone around also to convert to estrogen, theoretically your body should turn itself back on. I mean, it's a simple feedback loop. But for some reason, in some people, it doesn't. And I don't think that's a failure of the pituitary. I think it might be a failure of the, well, no, I shouldn't say that. It's not a failure, I meant to say, of the testicles. It's a failure of the pituitary and hypothalamus to send out the signals. I don't know why they stopped doing it. I don't know. I don't know if anyone knows exactly why. But the fact that you can take HCG and HMG and make your testicles produce sperm and testosterone artificially tells you that the testicles are still working. They're just not receiving any signal from up above. In some people it happens, in some people it doesn't, and no one has a good explanation as to why. So I always tell people, do what you want to do. If you want to do some cycles in your 30s and you find pleasure from it, and you enjoy it, you want to compete, do what you got to do. Don't worry about the future. As long as you're not doing destructive stuff where you're damaging your body, okay? In terms of, like, I'm talking about liver and kidney and heart, okay, because of high blood pressure and stuff like that. As long as you're not doing destructive stuff, don't worry about whether your pituitary is going to turn itself back on again. Because you know what? The simple solution is you can just go on HRT later in life if you have to, or even HCG, whatever seems to work for you. So I tell people, don't worry about that. Make your decision based on what's important to you. If it's important to stay healthy and you don't want to put your body under the strain of PED usage, then don't do it. But if it's something that's going to give you pleasure, knock yourself out, but do it in a safe way.
Let's go to Coleman Lucas. He asked this question last week. We didn't get around to it. For building muscle, what are the best fat sources? So I guess just in terms of in a growth phase, the best fat sources that you would recommend.
I like to use whole eggs. That's one of my favorites for fats, for a little bit, because I'm not a big saturated fat eater. Like, you know, aside from my McDonald's I used to eat back in the day, I really don't enjoy eating huge amounts of, but I like whole eggs and they have saturated fats. So I get my saturated fats usually from that. I love macadamia nut oil. I think it's the best, purest form of monounsaturated fats that you could probably consume in your body. It's processed really well. It helps with heart, you know, your heart markers, LDL cholesterol, lowering that. To me, that's the fat that should drive predominantly the amount of fat that you consume daily in your diet, okay? The other stuff is small amounts, like a little bit of saturates from your whole eggs, a little bit of saturates from chicken and red meat if you want to incorporate that. I like omega-3 fats coming from like wild-caught salmon. Obviously, some of the omega-3s will come from if you're eating omega-3 eggs. I do like avocados, okay, which are a really good source of monounsaturated fats as well as far as foods go. Nuts are a good source of your polyunsaturates. Some of the omega-6s are in there that are really good for you. So I like to mix it up. Sometimes, some days I'll focus more on one type of fat, but one thing, I always have a lot of monounsaturated fats because even though they're not essential, they're the healthy fats for your body. They're going to keep your body healthy and they're going to keep your heart healthy, and they're really good burning fats. To believe it or not, you don't really need a lot of your omega-3s and 6s. You just need to get the right ones. And that's why I usually recommend that people take a fatty acid supplement like Omega-Lyze. Take your 3 pills twice a day of the Omega-Lyze. Then you don't have to worry about your essential fats. And then you can just eat fats that you actually enjoy or that your body processes well. And once again, that should be primarily focused on your monounsaturates.
Let's go to Dej Wick. Dave, before I ask this question, I guess it's all interrelated. Did you hear about the story with Arnold Schwarzenegger refusing to train at Gold's Gym?
No, I did not. What was that about?
So yeah, just Tyler, if you can get around to it, if you want to pull up, there's a TMZ article that kind of describes exactly what happened. Apparently, Arnold went to Gold's Gym. I believe Venice. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong on that, let's just stick with Gold's Gym. Apparently, he went in. He was told that members had to walk in with a mask. However, they were not required to wear a mask, at all parts of the gym, on the training floor area. So he refused to train there. And I guess what TMZ's reporting is that until masks are required or a vaccine is found, he was just not going to train there. Now, what's not clear to me is whether it just means Gold's Gym or all gyms.
No, it's Gold's Venice. It says it right there, Gold's Venice.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
So it's interesting. So Arnold, Arnold is an older guy. I mean, he's got, he wants to protect himself. He's the age range that's vulnerable to the COVID-19. So I don't blame him. But that's, I guess it's up to the gym to decide that. I mean, Arnold has his own feelings about it, and that's great. I'm sure Arnold has a home gym, so I don't know why I would just train at home if I were Arnold until this whole thing blows over. There's no sense in him, risking himself. I know they got some pictures of him there with his son training, the son that he had, I guess, with the maid. And, he's a bodybuilder, the guy. So, it's great that Arnold's got him in the gym and everything like that. But, Arnold probably has a better home gym than Gold's Gym Venice, I'm sure. If I were him, I'd be home until this whole thing blows over and then go back to the gym. Go ride your bike outside because that's, you got fresh air, and stay out of the gym. Putting a mask on in the gym, we've already discussed this, is not going to do anything. So at this point, if you're worried about catching something in the gym, you having a mask and everyone else having a mask is not preventing that because people are touching things. You're touching the same machines they are, okay? You touch your face by accident and now you got it. So, at this point, for people who are in the higher risk, categories, just stay out of places like that, especially if you have a home gym.
Let's go to Evan Kripe. When you began using PEDs, did you gain knowledge on them through trial and error, or did you have sort of an advisor showing you the ropes?
I read the Bill Phillips Anabolic Reference Guide, literally, and I've said this before, at least 200 to 300 times. I knew the book probably better than he did, and he wrote the book. I had the book memorized. Before I ever took a single shot, I had cycles planned out. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I didn't even know where to get steroids. I didn't know anything about it, but I knew everything about them just from the perspective of educating myself. So then I had to become proficient in using them, and once I started using them, I became a user. So you're not a steroid expert until you actually use the stuff too, because you have to understand how they work and what they feel like and what the side effects are. It's kind of hard to advise other people how to use stuff if you've never used it yourself. So that's how I primarily educated myself. And then when I decided to take the next step, I had a doctor friend I've talked about many times, Dr. Mike, He was he graduated 20 years early from the same medical school I did. He worked out at the same gym, and he was a believer in anabolics. He believed that they can be used safely, and so he was kind of like my mentor because he was the guy I can ask questions to if things went wrong, if I got side effects, if I got an infection or something. He was the guy, he gave me a prescription for antibiotics. He was at least a guy that it was like a safety net for me. He was like my surrogate father in that respect. Someone that I respected who had more knowledge than me in that regard. Even though I theoretically on paper knew all the different stuff that you should be doing, he practically knew if something went wrong, because he used it himself, what to do. And so I was lucky. I was really lucky that I had that fallback right there. And, we were very good friends. And I used to, I would go, he would train at like 2 o'clock in the morning in this gym. He had the key to it. And I would meet him at this gym, and I had already done my work, and I would just hang out there and ask him a million questions, and he loved talking about it. So that was kind of my education between Bill Phillips, Anabolic Reference Guide, and Dr. Mike. Yeah.
Let's go to Jack Connor, IFBB Pro. How important are low and high carb days in the off season, or can you eat the same thing day in and day out and still progress?
You could ask my wife right now. I'm a machine. I could eat the same thing every single day. Not like repeat it every day, and I will not get sick of it. Because I believe that repetitive action, okay, is what gets you results. You have to be a machine, okay. The way you apply your diet, the way you apply your supplement intake. I'll never miss a vitamin either every single day, and I'm not even competing now. I would never miss a workout back in the day, okay, because that's what you have to do. It's reproducible results. Okay, every single day, do the same routine, and little by little you grow and grow and grow and grow, or diet off the fat, or whatever your goals or whatever the program you're participating in. Now, if you hit a stagnation point, you have to then make a change to move past it. So if I'm going a week or two and I'm not making any gains, or I'm not losing any fat, depending on what stage I'm in, then I got to change something, a variable. But if something's working, I have clients and they send me updates, twice a week, and they're gaining progressively and in off seasons. I don't change anything. I almost feel guilty. I tell them, look, you're making my life easy. I'm not going to change anything if you're making progressive gains every single week. Likewise, if I'm dieting someone down in there, every update they send me, they're losing 1 to 3 pounds. Why would I change anything? They're making everything's working. Keep doing the same thing, until it stops working, and then we'll make some variable changes. And that's bodybuilding for you. It's boring as shit. It's not exciting, but it's the applied application over and over and over again that gets you the results. And a lot of people can't do that because they can't program their brain that way. They need constant new stimulation. That's not how you become a good bodybuilder. The bodybuilding lifestyle is very boring and repetitive, but that's what makes you successful. Can you apply it day in and day out and never deviate?
Let's go to JR the Painter. I recently went to the doctor, and he told me that I'm pre-diabetic and need to start a diet for that. What would you recommend as far as foods to help out with pre-diabetes?
Obviously you don't want to eat a lot of sugar. You want to keep your glycemic carbs, glycemically lower on the glycemic. That means, carbs that take a little longer to digest, higher fiber carbs, starchier carbs that require breakdown over a long period of time, so that you're not getting a huge surge of insulin, okay? Because obviously your body, if you're borderline type 2, your body might not be producing enough insulin. So if your body can release smaller amounts over a longer period of time, you're going to have a much better likelihood of having good blood sugar control. Also, keeping your carbs a little lower is also going to help with that as well. Raise your protein and fat up a little bit so that your body's not dealing with as much sugar in the blood to begin with. And so, and of course, if your blood sugars are still not good and you're running high fasting morning sugars, you might have to take a long-acting insulin to take the burden off of the pancreas. In other words, the pancreas can only produce so much insulin. If it's becoming damaged, or if it's becoming not as functional as you're getting older, that means it's not producing as much insulin. Forcing it to have to try to produce more insulin is not the answer. It's giving it a helping hand, so to speak. It's almost like taking HRT, when your testosterone is a little low as you get older. Well, if your insulin is a little low, you got to supplement with insulin. The way to do it is not with a fast-acting insulin, it's with a longer-acting insulin, because those long-acting insulins will take the 24-hour load off of the pancreas of having to produce as much, and usually that will allow the gland, the beta cells, to recuperate, maybe even regenerate a little bit, and that'll improve your health quite a bit and give you better longevity, because we know that high blood sugars ultimately lead to a lot of side effects down the road. And that's the best, it's not standard practice for doctors to do this. And I think that that's going to be the future of not only longevity medicine, but of just medicine in general. It's going to be getting people to be able to control their blood sugars better. And if that includes a hormone replacement dose of insulin as well as testosterone, then so be it. Who cares? I think the great thing about taking long-acting insulin is it's not like taking a short-acting. You don't go hypo from it. You don't go low. It doesn't hit you right away. It's a very long, drawn-out type of thing. It trickles into your bloodstream, and you only get small amounts of it over the course of a 24-hour period. So you don't go low. As a matter of fact, you could literally, you take it before bed on an empty stomach, go to sleep. So mark my word, in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see a lot more people going on insulin replacement therapy.
Let's go to Grazi 54. Dave, how many ounces of diatonic water should I take with a zinc tablet?
It's very variable. I tell people do 6 ounces, okay? Now, people are saying, well, there's not, if you look at how many milligrams are in 6 ounces versus the pills that they have, I don't think you need as much quinine as they're saying. I just don't. You're only driving zinc into the cells, okay? You don't need massive amounts of it. If you're worried that the diatonic water doesn't have enough, you can buy quinine pills. At least I don't know if they still have them available. I bought them on Amazon when this whole thing started. They were 500 milligram pills. You could also get a prescription for hydroxychloroquine, which is a much more potent form of quinine as well, at a higher dosage. Usually 500 milligrams, 400 to 500 milligrams is the dosage of those as well. But I see a lot of benefit from just, like I said, drinking 6 ounces of diatonic water a day with your zinc, chelated zinc, whether you're getting it from IV mineralized or you're taking a separate source of it. I think that's enough. And once again, you don't need to take this prophylactically. It's when you get symptoms of COVID or you think you have it, then you start taking that. That's when I would start taking the tonic water or the chloroquine or the quinine to then drive that zinc into the muscle cells. Into all the cells, I should say.
Let's go to FlexJ22. What would you suggest to add mass to chest if just struggling to grow?
Well, I think the majority of people don't grow pecs because they're just not training them correctly. And I think you have to revamp your training. You have to really maybe lighten the weights up, work on getting those elbows out to the side, getting that chest up, focus more on incline, like maybe a narrow incline, and really just squeeze that weight up, because I think people just use their shoulders and they cheat when they do chest, and that's why other things grow, their delts grow, and they don't have good pecs.
Go to Shadwater Fit. Regarding halotestin, I know most people use a protocol of taking a pre-workout, but from what I understand, the half-life is around 9 hours. Would you recommend splitting dose into 2 times a day with one being pre-workout or just taking all before training?
One more time, Sid?
So regarding halotestin, I know most people suggest a protocol of taking a pre-workout, but from what I understand, the half-life is around 9 hours. Would you recommend splitting doses 2 times a day with one being pre-workout, or just take it all before training?
I always took halotestin first thing in the morning. 20 milligrams. You don't have to worry about half-lives. The thing, you don't have to have this stuff in your system at full blast at all times, okay? It's a very toxic drug, okay? Personally, I think 1 dose per day is enough. What it really does is it's a very strong androgen that has no anabolic properties. You will not grow from taking halotestin, but it will store glycogen at super accelerated amounts. And that's what androgens do. Trenbolone makes you look so full and nasty because it's got a ton of androgens in it, more than testosterone has. So you look really good. Your body looks good on it, and that's why we're using halotestin, so that when we carb up, we're going to drive glycogen storage into the muscle cells at a much greater rate than we normally would. And you don't need to split dosages and make it so precise. Just take your morning dose of 20 milligrams and that's fine.
Weights with Wallace brings up Greg Doucette. I think Greg brought up a great topic about HRT and how it's such a taboo thing to admit. Why and how can it be changed that it's not something people need to feel they should lie about? Citing that it's a medical need as well. Yeah,
I think that people, there's a stigma related to taking testosterone. Oh, he's on steroids. Oh, he must look good because he's taking testosterone. And for people who don't care what other people think, it's not a big deal. But I think that a lot of people have this, they worry about what other people think of them. And, people are jealous. If someone looks really good, people look at it and try to find an excuse as to what, why they look good, Mike O'Hearn must look good because he takes steroids, right? Well, no, Mike O'Hearn has always looked good his whole freaking career because the guy eats perfectly, he trains hard, he takes care of himself. I mean, but there's jealousy out there because the guy's on covers and he makes money and he's a good-looking guy and he's been, he does acting things. So that's the reason. People have to stop. First of all, people have to stop worrying about the good opinion of others, and I think that the more, as years progress and hormone replacement becomes more accepted and more people start doing it, I think people will stop, complaining about it. I don't see anyone saying, "Oh, she's on the pill" or "she's on estrogen replacement therapy." That's what, no one does that, right? Because it's not a big deal because it's been around for so long. So I think once more people start using it, it becomes a little more publicly accepted. It'll be fine. The thing that screws it up for everyone is that these athletes who are older athletes can't use it, like in football and baseball, because it's against Major League Baseball or NFL football policy to use it. So they can't use it, and because they can't use it, it makes it look like people who do use it are doing something illegal, and that's really where I think the stigma comes from.
Last two questions. They're both about you, past and present, so we'll just sandwich them together. One from Raheem Ahmed. The largest t-shirt size you wore when you were at your absolute biggest. And then the second question from Cujo. Is your stomach completely flat now? I'm asking because I'd love to put the organ growth theory to rest.
Yeah, I think I wore a XXX. I don't think but on a jacket, I would have to go to like a 4X. The problem is when you go over 3X, and I'm not that tall, I'm only like I was like 5'10", 5'10 and a half at my, I'm shorter now, I think a little bit, probably about a half an inch shorter now, but at 5'10", a 4X or 5X jacket hangs down almost to my knees because it's made for tall guys, so that was the problem. But my t-shirt was usually a 3X, but that would fit tight, that would fit really tight. I didn't like wearing t-shirts. If anyone who knew me back in the 90s and early 2000s, I wore a lot of tank tops because t-shirts just fit so tight. I was always sweating and it just was uncomfortable for me. And that's why I wore shorts all the time too. So that's just the way it goes. My stomach's completely flat. I'm ripped. I'll show you. I don't have a stomach. I have ripped abs because I don't.
If you held that like a second longer, there would have been our thumbnail for today.
All right,
there we go.
So, yeah, I think what happens is when you get big, and when I was 300 plus pounds, I had a lot of muscle too, a lot of thick muscle here. I had no body fat. I don't know if I had visceral fat that I couldn't see that was underneath the muscle. I don't know. I just think that I was, when you're that big, you have food in your stomach all the time. And I think that when you eat a lot of food, especially someone like myself who had to eat a lot of calories every day, you stretch the cells of the intestinal tract. And when your small intestine and your colon are stretched out all the time because it's full of food being processed, their muscles, they grow. And so I think that they expand so they can accommodate all that food. Because think about it, I'm eating 5 times the food of a normal person. So I got to have bigger intestines to do that. And then when you stop eating that much food and you reduce your food intake down to a normal person, which is what I did, now those muscles don't need to be big. They like a normal muscle, they atrophy and they go back to the normal size. So that's the great thing about muscle. It can get bigger and smaller depending on what the requirements on it are. That's why even your heart, your heart can get bigger as an athlete, but then when you stop being as athletic, it will go back to normal size unless you have something wrong with you. So I think that there's a lot of myth with it's not organ growth. The liver and the kidneys, don't grow. The heart is a muscle. It can get bigger, but it will get smaller too. And that's the first thing. I've gone to plenty of cardiologists just because I have an arrhythmia, and I've asked these guys questions, and they all agree the same thing. You know what? If you detrain your heart, it will get smaller. We've seen it happen. It's happened to me. My left ventricle was very thick about 5 years ago. When I would go for ultrasound, the echocardiogram, and when I go now, they tell me it's almost normal size. And I'm like, and they told me it would never go. Some people said it would never go back to normal. There were a few specialists I went to who says, oh, you have an athletic heart. It's going to go back to normal, even though it's very thick. But you were a 300-pound bodybuilder, so it needed to be that thick. So, you know, so many people make up things about GH this, GH that. You know, the body is an amazing organism. It responds. It will get bigger. It will get smaller. It will get fatter. It will get skinnier, depending on what stresses you put on it, what foods you put into it, what nutrients you put into it, and what your mindset is, what you want to accomplish. It really is true. You are what you think about. So be careful about what you think about and make very precise imaginations of what you want to look like, because you will achieve that if you put enough effort into it. I promise you.
And that's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Reminder right now on RxMuscle.com, the episode of Iron Debate, call it for what it is. It is a debate on race. That is live right now on RxMuscle.com. As soon as we wrap this episode, Dave is going to get on with 1983 Mr. Olympia Samir Bannout, so you're not going to want to miss that one. And, of course, 2 blockbusters tomorrow. It's a blockbuster every week with Lee Priest on Iron Rage, and then the much long-awaited Guru Talk episode with Lane Norton. I think that episode went about a good hour and a half. So, again, a lot of quality content right now on RxMuscle.com. If you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification button. Make sure you like this video. You're not going to miss any of our upcoming segments. For Dave Palumbo and our producer, Tyler Shore, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.